What's up, pumpers? Jerome here with another TBC video. Today we're going to be covering all of your best in slot options for gear for Resto Druid in Phase 2 of the Burning Crusade. If you like the video, make sure to toss the video a like, hit the subscribe button as well. I'll keep coming with more in-depth TBC content.
You are not prepared!
Before we get started on the BiS list, I wanted to go over your number one goal as a Resto Druid in Phase 2, which is to drop tailoring as quickly as possible. If you've been following this channel, you may have seen the video I did recently on why everybody should be engineering in TBC, and this still applies to Resto Druids, especially in PvE and PvP. You're going to want to be engineering, and enchanting gives you an additional 40 healing power. It's too good to pass up. We want to get rid of tailoring as quickly as possible. That's what our number one goal in Phase 2 is, to get rid of tailoring. Number 2, increase your healing power and your stats as much as you possibly can. First off, I wanted to talk about Phase 1 BiS, because we need to know where we're starting from in order to figure out what we should prioritize for the next phase. So basically, I'm going to put everything on the screen now. This was my Phase 1 BiS list. So if you look at it, we had triple primal mooncloth, we had the mooncloth chest, the belt, and also the shoulders. So basically, these are the pieces you're going to be wanting to get rid of soon in Phase 2. Meanwhile, we had a lot of different Karazhan pieces as well. We had the Crown of Malorn, for example, the Midst of the Tree Mender, the Oso leggings. All of these were our Phase 1 BiS. Meanwhile, there were 3 world boss pieces as well: the boots, the legs, and the necklace. The necklace will be replaced. The other 2 will not in Phase 2. So if you have world boss boots or legs as a Resto Druid, you're going to be keeping those throughout Phase 2. Just wanted to go over weapons as well. We had the Light's Justice. Most people ran Tears of Heaven as the offhand, even though it didn't have a lot of stats, had the highest healing power of any of the options. Light's Justice from Phase 1 will get replaced pretty quickly as your weapon. This is one of your biggest upgrades, in fact. Meanwhile, your offhand, the Tears of Heaven, will not get replaced throughout Phase 2. It still has the highest healing power. Talking about other items we're not going to replace, the Jade Ring of Ever Living from Karazhan, still highest healing power ring other than the SSC ring, so still going to be one of your best options. Meanwhile, the Midst of Tree Mender will stay with the 2 gem slots. Too hard to pass up compared to the Tier 5. It's still better. Your Urso leggings or your World Boss leggings will still stay as well. These are just better overall healing power than the Tier 5 legs, though there are situations where I would look into running the Tier 5 legs, depending on the boss. Also, your Trinket Essence of the Martyr will stay as well. The only trinket we're going to be adding in Phase 2 will be the Dire Brew trinket. This is a 1-to-1 clone of the Essence of the Martyr. We're not 100% sure how that will interact, or even if it will be in the next Dire Brew update, but most likely if it is, this will be one of your best trinkets, as it's 84 healing power, a 1-to-1 match of Essence of the Martyr. Depends on if it will allow you to stack them or not. If not, it will become a sort of a fallback trinket, and you'll still use your Eye of the Dead, your Scarab of the Infinite Cycle, for example. But overall, if it does end up stacking, it will become one of your very, very best trinkets, or if it allows you to use it like in consecutive session. So, for example, you can just use the Essence, then use the Dire Brew trinket. That would still be your highest healing power options. Meanwhile, you'll be happy to note you will be actually keeping your Idol of the Emerald Queen, which will stay throughout TBC, which is a nice thing. You don't have to worry about replacing that at any point. Next up, I wanted to talk about your priority list. Before we get into our BiS list, I figured it would be good to look at the sort of items you should prioritize going into Phase 2. What is going to give you the biggest stat upgrades? What are the biggest game-changing pieces for you? So I made a list. It's on the screen now. This is going to be, in my opinion, the biggest upgrades in terms of pure stats for Phase 2 on your Resto Druid. So first off, we have the Light Fathom Scepter, number 1 item by far for Resto Druid in Phase 2 compared to the Light's Justice. We're talking 61 more healing power. Absolutely massive. Everyone's going to fight over this on the healing side, but if you can get it early, you're in great shape. I would definitely prioritize having this as soon as humanly possible. Next up, we have the Nordical Headguard over the Crown of Malorn. It has 35 more healing, 6 more spirit, 12 more stamina than the Crown of Malorn. So pretty much no-brainer if you get this second. Here's the thing. I'm going to talk about rarity after this, not just talk about best upgrades. So I would not actually prioritize this as one of your first pieces, but put it later in your list if you have a DKP system of some sort. Next up, we have the Sunshower Light Cloak, significantly better than the Stainless Cloak of the Pure-Hearted, 24 more healing power, 20 more spirit, 1 more int. Across the board, better stats. A little bit unfortunate if you just got your Stainless Cloak because of how rare it is, but yeah, I would definitely recommend putting this high on your loot list. The Sunshower Light Cloak is a huge upgrade. Next up, we have the infamous Coral Band of the Revive. This comes from Lady Vash. It is a 20 healing, 10 spirit upgrade over your Violet Signet of the Grand Restorer, which is absolutely huge. Keep in mind, this is really hard to get because it comes from Lady Vash, so it's going to be very contested. I would honestly put it pretty high on your list in terms of rarity. It's BiS for PvP, for Battlegrounds, for Arenas, for PvE, for Raids, pretty much everything. Phase 2, this ring is your best in slot. Next up, we have the Nordosil Life Mantle over the Primal Mooncloth. We talked about at the start of the video how you want to slowly get rid of your tailoring as soon as possible. This is one of those pieces that makes that possible, has way better stats across the board. 21 more healing power, 11 more and 26 stam compared to Primal Mooncloth, and thank God you get more armor as well because it's a leather piece. This is going to be a priority, though it does come from tokens, so it's not going to be nearly as rare as the cloak, the ring, the weapon, for example, but still a piece you want to have high on your list just because of how big of an upgrade it is. Lord Sanguinar's Claim is a significant upgrade over the Emperor's Talisman. We're talking 13 more healing, 19 and 25 stam, so this is going to be a priority in terms of raw stat upgrade. I will definitely put this high on my list. If you have the Archaic Charm of Presence from World Boss, it's going to be a less significant upgrade by a pretty wide margin, but it's still an upgrade, so you're still going to want to have this pretty high on your list. Put it around number 6, number 5 area. Definitely something you want to pick up pretty early. Next up, we have the Orca Hide Boots. Significantly better than the Forest Lord Striders because they have 18 more healing power, 3 more spirit, but worse than the Gold Leaf Wild Boots. So if you have World Boss loot, you are all set in Phase 2 in terms of boots. I would definitely put these in the middle of my pack in terms of DKP or loot list system. I'm not really prioritizing them super early, but if that's all I can get for a while, I'm going to go for them. Now we're starting to get to things that are not nearly as big of an upgrade. The Grove Bands of Remulus are a very, very, very small upgrade over the Bindings of the Time Walker. It's arguable that the Ravager's wrist wraps might even be better from Kara's and trash farming. The Grove Bands have such a small healing power increase, it's almost laughable. So in terms of stats, the Grove Bands have 4 more healing power, 2 and 21 more spirit. So you're getting extra spirit, but the rest of your stats are basically non-existent. So if you are in a guild and they give you this piece as like a token of gratitude or something, it may be that they're passive aggressive towards you because this is a very, very small upgrade. This is not something that I would say you should spend any DKP on. It's 25% drop rate. It's easy to get. It's going to be one of those pieces that every Resto Druid has in Phase 2. And it's probably one of the least rare pieces you can get that isn't a tier piece. So I would definitely not prioritize the Grove Bands at all. The Spirit is nice. Some people even run them in arenas, but I would not be looking to get these early at all. Next up, in terms of my priority, I would go with the Nordosil Chest Guard. It has 0 healing power increase over Primal Mooncloth. But again, remember our goal from the start of the video. We want to get rid of tailoring. And it does come with a lot of other stats. You're going to get 13 int, 36 stam, 11 spirit. That's pretty awesome. But the thing is, no more healing power. So you're not getting any healing power. You do get a little bit extra because of the spirit. But it's still, this is such a marginal upgrade. The nice thing is you do get a lot more armor, a lot more survivability from this. It sort of just tops you up in terms of your character, gives you a lot more health. So I wouldn't prioritize this at all. It would be one of the last pieces I want to get. But that being said, does get you away from tailoring, which is a win in my book. Now we're getting to a really weird point in your gearing process. There are 2 options. In fact, there are actually 3 basically identical options. The Primal Mooncloth belt is unfortunately still BiS in terms of raw healing parsing and healing power because it has 8 more healing power than either of the other 2 belts. So the Belt of the Long Road is, in my opinion, the best statted belt that isn't the Primal Mooncloth. It comes from tailoring. You're going to need to get 2 nether vortexes to get it and the recipe. So it's going to be relatively difficult to get. Meanwhile, the Girdle of Zatar, slightly worse stats. And again, the Belt of the Long Road and the Girdle of Zatar both have 8 less healing power than the Primal Mooncloth belt. But you're getting away from tailoring and you get a lot of other stats. So this is a situation where I think it's worth it because that allows you to get into enchanting and engineering. And I think getting rid of the Primal Mooncloth belt for the Girdle of Zatar is perfectly worth it. If you wait a little bit longer and get the Belt of the Long Road, I think it has slightly better stats for Resto Druid. But either way, it literally does not matter. They're almost identical in every way. If you get the Girdle of Zatar, I wouldn't touch it throughout Phase 2. If you get the Belt of the Long Road, I wouldn't touch it. And if you want to keep tailoring, I wouldn't touch the Primal Mooncloth belt. They're all basically identical. Your final upgrade, the Nordisil Life Kilt. This is a really, really weird one because it's not actually an upgrade over Ursol or the World Boss loot either. It's literally worse than the Ursol leggings. But here's the thing, with the set bonus, there are certain bosses and certain scenarios where I would like to have that Life Bloom Pop bonus heal. So basically, these legs are going to be in your bags, swapped in for certain fights. For example, if there's a boss that does tons and tons of massive damage, like Nether Spite, for example, that would be a great example of a time where I might want to use those legs over the Ursol legs because of the additional Life Bloom Pop. If you're the only Resto Druid and you're doing a fight like Nether Spite, I actually think there is a time and a place for the Life Kilt, and I think having it in your bags is great. And you're doing arenas as well. Let's say you want to put on that set just to get the bonus regrowth, 6 extra seconds. That's definitely worth it. So I wouldn't pass on these, but they're the last thing you're gonna get, and it's not even close. Now that we've talked about Phase 2 BiS in terms of stat upgrades, I wanted to cover what the most rare and difficult and hard to access items are for Phase 2, because if you're making a DKP or loot list system, it's gonna matter what items are hard to get and which items you see every single week that people start enchanting a month and a half into the raid. You don't want to, prioritize an item that people are going to disenchant a month from now. So I think without a doubt, the weapon is your number one. The Light Fathom Scepter, this is going to be the hardest to get. Comes from Lady Vash. This is a rare item. We're talking all Lady Vash's weapons and items are going to be 16% drop rate approximately. So this is going to be really, really, really tough to get and really contested, because I would say pretty much every healer is going to want to get in on this. So if you are a Resto Druid, I would put this at the top of your list by far. It's going to be your rarest item. Next up, we have the Sun Shower Light Cloak. Drops from KT, 19% drop rate. It's going to be hard to get. It's going to be rare to get. And I honestly think a lot of guilds won't kill KT for a month or two. So I know that's hard to believe, but I did a lot of PTR testing, and KT seemed really, really, really difficult. So honestly, I think this is a good spot for the Sun Shower Life Cloak. It's really, really hard to get because of it dropping from KT. Really rare. I don't think there's anything I would put second on my list ahead of it. It's just going to be a pain to get this cloak. Next up, we have the Coral Band of the Revive. Comes from Lady Vash. We're talking 16% drop rate. Really, really, really annoying to get. Everybody's going to want it. It's BiS for pretty much every aspect of the game as a healer. And yeah, you're going to want this. You're going to want it early. It's hard. It's rare to get. Again, your guild may not kill Lady Vash for a month. So having this on your list and letting everyone just kind of get all the pieces that drop every single week, and then, you swoop in and get those for free. Meanwhile, you put your DKP into an item that really, really matters to you, like the ring or the weapon. I think that's the play personally, but, it's your call. Next up, we have the Orca Hide Wild Boots. 14% drop rate from Leotheras. Leotheras is going to be on farm for every guild after, the first week or so. So I don't think these are like a huge priority. They're going to be pretty easy to get, but that's a pretty low drop rate. I don't know if you did Karazhan and you had like a drop that just was 15%, but it just never dropped. I mean, for example, the Myths of the Tree Mender for us have only dropped once. The Stainless Cloak of the Purehearted has only dropped once. So imagine now you're in a 25-man raid instead of 10. And some of these items are just never dropping. Next up, I would prioritize getting the Girdle of Zaytar, or if your guild is insanely nice to you, getting those 2 Nether Vortexes and even the recipe for the Belt of the Long Road. I would honestly say the Girdle of Zaytar is going to be 100 times easier to get because people are going to want these Nether Vortexes for everything. So I would say the Girdle of Zaytar in this position is a pretty good place to put it. Yet again, the Belt of the Long Road is a little bit better in my opinion, like maybe a small percentage better, but it's not significant enough. And yeah, just getting rid of your Primal Mooncloth as soon as possible would be awesome. So this is going to be the last piece that kind of blocks you from getting that, because the tier pieces will be a lot easier to get. So I would say getting the belt early is a smart move, especially if you hate tailoring and you love playing arenas. Next up, we have Lord Sanguinar's Claim. In my opinion, this is going to be sort of a weird one to prioritize because it works sort of like the Onyxia or Nefarin Head quest. An orb will be dropped on KT every time you kill him. One person in your guild gets that orb and turns it in for a quest. It could be you, it could be early, it could be later. I would put this a little bit later, sort of in like the bottom half of my loot list, just because I think if it's 100% drop rate, it's the kind of thing where if you have any equity in your guild, you're going to get this eventually. People are going to give it to you. And if you have no equity, it's still something you might get pretty early. I mean, I remember getting the BWL head and the Onyxia head pretty easily, and it wasn't like streamer benefits or anything. I just, you know, if you do enough of these dungeons, the most common item is going to just end up going in your inventory eventually. So not something I would prioritize, but the stats are great. So definitely needs to be pretty, you know, in the middle of your pack on your list. Next up, the Grove Bands of Remulos. These are far and away one of the easiest, most common pieces you're going to see. You're going to be disenchanting these a month and a half in. I guarantee it. Grove Bands of Remulos, the stats are, it's fine, but it's a 25% drop rate for one of the easier bosses in SSCs. You're going to see this every single week, pretty much. You're going to be like, dang, another pair of Grove Bands of Remulos. It's going to be a meme, probably. So I'm just saying, wouldn't prioritize them at all. You're going to get them no matter what. Definitely low on your list, but higher than the tier pieces. Next up, we have the Nordosil Head Guard. Remember, this is a tier piece. These are significantly less rare than anything else because 2 tokens drop from every boss, and Lady Vash is going to be the one dropping your headpiece. She drops 2 tokens. They can be one of 3 different armor types. There's 3 different types of tokens, but you could also have a duplicate, so there's a really, really high chance you're going to get this headpiece pretty quickly. Remember, it is Lady Vash. If your guild is having a rough time, you may not get it for a while, but overall, these tier pieces are designed to get a lot of people looted out quickly. I would not prioritize any of the tier pieces at all. Next up, the Nordosil Life Mantle. Again, it's a huge upgrade over the Private Mooncloth, but it's another tier piece. It's the kind of thing you're not going to really need to prioritize. It comes from Void Reaver, a boss your guild should have on farm the first week. So this is one of your lowest on your loot list. It's just not that much of a priority in my opinion, just because it's going to be super easy to get. That being said, I mean, the stats are huge. It's a big upgrade, but it's the kind of thing you're going to get no matter what in a couple weeks, so don't stress about it. It's just going to happen. Next up, the Nordosil Chest Guard drops from KT from tokens, so it's going to be hard to get, but the reason I have it so low on the list is just because it is not a very big upgrade. No More Healing Power is a buzzkill in my opinion. You're not going to want to get this early, and yeah, it does drop from KT, so it's going to be a little harder to get, but still, it's the kind of upgrade that just isn't really an upgrade. It's more of a side grade where you end up with better stats, but you don't really heal anymore. And as a healer, that doesn't really do a lot for me. So it's going to be low on my priority, like difficulty list. Yes, it's difficult to get from KT, but overall, like, no, this is not the kind of piece. Even if it's more difficult to get than the shoulder, I still would rather have the shoulder piece. So you can't put that very high on the list, in my opinion. Last but not least, the Nordosil Life Kilt. This is going to be really easy to get. You're going to get these tokens from the Fathom Lord in SSC. You're going to see these like candy, probably be disenchanting them in a month or 2. So yeah, definitely one of your easiest to get. Keep in mind, these are actually BiS for arenas in my opinion, so not useless and situational in PvE, but they are direct downgrade to the Urso leggings. Also a direct downgrade to the World Boss legs as well. So the kind of thing, yes, they're really easy to get. They're also not that great. So you're going to get these early. Shouldn't be a priority. Should basically be something you just get for free for showing up to the raid if you keep showing up for like a couple months. So should be no problem for you. So now that we've talked about what you should be prioritizing in terms of upgrades in Phase 2 for your Resto Druid, I wanted to put a build on the screen. This is going to be the first build I want to talk about for your BiS list. Basically, this build that I put together is all about maximizing your healing power and your stats at the same time. So it does not go crazy overboard doing anything wild with the pieces. Basically, you're running 3 of the 5 tier set pieces. So you're missing the legs and the gloves. Meanwhile, you're running pretty much all new gear in terms of the bracers, the weapon, the belt, the chest. All the side pieces are basically different. The only things we're keeping are the offhand, the Tears of Heaven. We're also keeping the Jade Ring of the Ever-Living, the Idol of the Emerald Queen, of course, and the Midst of the Tree Mender. The Midst of the Tree Mender, unfortunately, if you just compare the stats of the Tier 5 Resto Druid gloves to the Midst of the Tree Mender, they're just worse, unfortunately. I don't know why, but that's the way they are. You may be wondering, why are we not getting the tier set bonus? The Rejuvenation extra damage pop seems awesome, right? Well, it's just not that awesome, because if you're healing tanks, rolling life blooms, why would you want your life blooms to pop? It doesn't really make sense. So it's a situational thing where if you're in a big AoE fight, and there are some fights in TK, for example, where there are tons of AoE, this is the situation where you're going to want to have that life bloom pop. But it's going to be situational. You're going to have to figure out which fights those are. And in that case, I would swap the Urso leggings out and then put in the Nordiso life kilt. Or you could do the glove swap, either one. But the important thing to note is that this is really situational and pretty marginal, honestly. I think if you have like a good Resto Shaman, you're not going to really need to do a lot of AoE healing. So yeah, I mean, it's just, this is the set I came up with. Obviously, the Light Fathom Scepter is your jewel. This is the piece everyone's going to be like, oh my god, I can't believe you have that. It's the piece you want. You have enchanting and engineering now, so we're getting rid of tailoring with this build. You want to do that as soon as possible. You may look at the Belt of the Long Road and be like, well, how the heck am I going to get this? It requires nether vortexes. The Girdle of Zatar is exactly the same for all intents and purposes, so you don't really have to worry. In terms of going piece by piece by piece with this build, first off, we have the Nordisil Headguard. This is pretty much your BiS, but the Wonder Heal is actually basically the same, and with 5 more healing power. So if you're really all in on healing power, or you do not have a good standing in terms of getting this headpiece, you may want to get the Wonder Heal instead. 5 more healing power has a really nifty thing where you can actually fulfill the set bonus and get 9 more healing power, which gives you 20 if you run a blue heroic gem. So that's pretty awesome, and you get a little more stats because of that, but you lose a lot of survivability and stamina. So I'm still gonna run the Nordisil headpiece, but I think the Wonder Heal is a perfectly great alternative. Keep in mind, you're going to keep running the 35 healing power enchant as well. This is still going to be your BiS in phase 2. Next up, Lord Sanguinar's Claim. This is going to be BiS compared to the World Boss Loot and the Ember Spur Talisman. Ember Spur is going to be your backup, or the World Boss Archaic Charm of Presence, until you're lucky enough to get chosen to get that Lord Sanguinar's Claim. Once you have that, of course, it's going to replace both of those. Next up, Nordisil Life Mantle. This is going to go with the Alder enchant, of course, for maximum healing. You're going to replace the Primal Mooncloth as soon as you can. There's really nothing else I would run until then. I would just run Primal Mooncloth, then replace with an Nordisil Life Mantle. Next up, we have the Sun Shower Light Cloak. This will replace your Stainless Cloak of the Pure Hearted. We're going to put Subtlety on it with a 2% reduced threat for sure. I would definitely recommend running the Stainless Cloak until you can get this replaced with the Sun Shower Light Cloak. Next up, the Nordisil Chest Guard. This will replace your Primal Mooncloth chest, and you're going to put 15 Spirit on it, of course. I would just run Primal Mooncloth chest as late as you can until you get the Nordisil. Doesn't have any extra healing power, so not a huge priority upgrade, but just keep that Primal Mooncloth on until you have to replace it. Next up, Grove Bands of Remulos. This will replace your Bindings of the Time Walker. Everybody should have the Bindings of the Time Walker already, from Exalted, Keepers of Time. Keep in mind, if you were lucky enough to get the wrist wraps with 90 healing power from Karazhan Trash Farming, I wouldn't replace those in phase 2. I have an alternative build coming up in a few minutes that will show you that the power of that healing power. So I would definitely run Grove Bands with the standard 30 healing power enchant. Definitely what you want to go with for that. Next up, we have the Light Fathom Scepter. This is going to replace your Light's Justice or whatever you had instead of Light's Justice. Some people would say you want to get a staff instead. Looking at the stats, that is clearly not the right call. The staff is still sort of a alternative swap for arenas and spirit for Innervate. I would never be running the staff instead of the Light Fathom Scepter. It's just way better with the offhand. You're going to have basically 100 more healing power. So I'm not even entertaining the idea that you should be shafted and into the role of perhaps getting the staff instead. It's definitely not something I want to do, and it's not something you should do either. Of course, we're going to run the 81 healing power enchant on our main hand, our Light Fathom Scepter. You can enchant your offhand, so that's just going to be staying put. Next up, we have the Midst of the Tree Mender, which you're going to remain with the 35 healing enchant. This is not going to change at all. Now, there are some crafted options and some Karazhan options for gloves, but the reality is you need to get those Midst of the Tree Mender. That's your number one priority. Keep doing Karazhan until you get them. I actually have a crafted glove because I still don't have the Midst of the Tree Mender. Alternatively, the tier 5 is weirdly enough a great standby until you get the Midst of the Tree Mender, because nobody's going to want those tier 5 gloves for Resto Druid, so you may be able to sneak in and grab those and run them as a placeholder until you get the Midst of the Tree Mender. Next up, for belt, you're going to run the Primal Mooncloth as long as you can. Once you get finally replacing tailoring, you're going to run the Belt of the Long Road or the Girdle of Zatar. Girdle of Zatar is going to be a lot easier to get. I would honestly just kind of slot that in as your placeholder. Just like, yeah, we're probably going to get that before the Girdle of the Belt of the Long Road. And Primal Mooncloth can stay as long as it has to. it's going to be exactly the same, a little bit more healing power, so just keep that in mind. Next up, we have the Ursal Leggings or Gilded Trousers of Benediction. These are going to have the Golden Spell Thread enchant on them, and basically, until you can get the Ursal Leggings, I would honestly try to look into getting that the tier 5 legs, because they're not quite as good in terms of healing power, but they would be one of your best bets to just sort of sit tight. Next up, we have the Orca Hide Boots. These are replacing your Forest Lord Striders. We're going to run the 8 stamina, minor movement speed increase on the boots. Until you can get the Orca Hide Boots, the Forest Lord Striders are fine, or the Gold Leaf Wild Boots if you are lucky enough to get World Boss loot. Next up, the Jade Ring of Ever Living. This is going to not be replaced in Phase 2. So if you don't have it yet, the Violet Signet of the Grand Restorer is fine. Don't forget your 20 healing power enchanting buff on this ring. Next up, the Coral Band of the Revived. Again, we're going to put a 20 healing enchant on this. If you don't have the Coral Band of the Revived yet, Violet Signet is fine. Jade Ring is fine. If you have both of those, that is a great combination. Next up, we have trinkets, the Essence of Martyr, and we're going to run the Dire Brew Hops trinket. So if the Dire Brew Hops trinket does not work with the Essence of Martyr, let's say they do not stack their activatable buffs together, then we would still use Dire Brew as a fallback trinket, and our main trinket other than Essence would become the Eye of the Dead. Eye of the Dead is one of the very, very best trinkets because I've talked about this on the stream all the time. You could roll 4 sets of 3 light blooms on your tanks and then activate the Eye of the Dead and replace 1 light bloom on each tank, and now boom, you've got that massive healing power increase. It's one of the reasons why it's one of my favorite trinkets, and why activatable trinkets like the Ashugun Relic, Eye of the Dead, Essence of Martyr, and Dire Brew Hops outshine the Scarab of Infinite Cycle and any sort of passive trinkets, just because ultimately on a Resto Druid, activating your trinkets and then refreshing a stack of light blooms is just amazing, amazing, amazing value, and will keep your tank alive in even the worst possible situations. Finally, we're going to talk about the Idol of the Emerald Queen. This is going to be BiS in all of the phases of TBC, so just keep that rolling. You're looking great. And yeah, one thing you don't have to replace every expansion. Next up, I wanted to cover a sort of a, not memey build, but a more unrealistic build. This is going to be if you're absolutely stacked. Let's say your guild is just getting all the world bosses, and you really want to go outside of the box with a set of gear that makes people turn their head. First thing you're going to want is the Wonderheal XT40 Shades. These are going to be a head turner. They actually have more healing power than the Nordosil headpiece. They have 5 more healing power because you can run a blue heroic gem and get the socket bonus of 9 extra healing. So the Wonderheal are actually BiS healing in terms of pure healing parses. They're going to turn heads for sure. Next up is going to be a crazy piece. We got the Ravager's Wrist Wraps of Healing, 90 healing power bracer. We're talking crazy healing. This is going to turn heads for sure. If you have this, people are going to probably stop you and ask, how the heck did you get those? And that's always fun. Next up, I wanted to keep the Prime Mooncloth belt because it has 8 more healing power than any of the other belts. But here's the problem. If you run tailoring, you can't run engineering and enchanting. So you either have to run the Wonderheal goggles or the Wonderheal shades, or you have to run the belt. You don't get a pick here. So if you're going true pure healing power, you do have to run Nordosil helmet, and you do have to run the Prime Mooncloth belt. But that just sounded disgusting to me. So I went with the Wonderheal XT shades. And then we're talking world boss loot. The Gilded Trousers of Benediction are still BiS in Phase 2 and offer massive, massive, massive healing power. If you can get them, this is your bet for a true, sort of unrealistic, but blinged out druid. And don't forget the Gold Leaf Wild Boots, also BiS. If you're blinging out your druid, this is definitely the play. They're gold, they look amazing. They remind me of like a gilded armor set from RuneScape or something. They're just fantastic. Definitely not something anybody at our server is going to be getting anytime soon, but if you are lucky enough to get them, definitely something to wear with pride in Phase 2. So we covered the priority for Phase 2. We covered a couple different builds. We covered all the items. We covered the rarity. We covered everything really as a Resto Druid that you should be looking for PvE. We're talking raiding. We're talking dungeons. Anything you need to maximize your healing power. It's all been covered here. Hopefully you got the information you needed. This was a bit of a long video compared to normal standards. Took a while to record, did a lot of research, made a lot of builds, made a lot of mistakes along the way, but in the end, I think we came out with the best possible upgrades and priority list for Phase 2 for Resto Druid. If you liked the video, don't forget to give the video a like. Hit the notification bell as well. You'll be alerted when a new video comes out like this. Gonna put in a lot more work, make you a lot more BiS list. Let me know if you have any questions or comments about the BiS list. Maybe there's something you want to see changed, something that you're curious about. I would love to talk about it in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and remember to have a great day.